think we've all been in a situation before where we turn the bowl or something, and then you have to figure out how to get the bottom flat. I don't have one of those cool chucks with the jaws, so I just use the old screw method. I turned this one, and I was trying to figure out how to get the bottom flat on it. The bandsaw is obviously a bad idea because it's going to roll. A sander isn't good. A joiner that's still kind of a narrow area to hit on a joiner. Plus, you'll never keep it perfectly flat. Hand planing, sanding, that's all too time consuming. And I want to take off a little bit to get rid of these screw holes. So I came up with this jig using just scraps I had around, piece of MDF. Used some ash for the sides, nice and durable. Put a couple holes through there. This was just in case I wanted to try a different location. I tried to keep it as close to the end as possible. And I had some scrap poplar, so I cut a quarter-inch hole, or drilled a quarter-inch hole and cut down to the bottom. So these two rails right here can be moved up or down to sit flush with the top of the piece that you're cutting. And what this allows you to do is run this sled through the planer, and if you want to do a different bowl later, you can just lower the sides or raise the sides, and eventually you'll have to replace them, but that's a really quick, easy process to grab whatever scrap you have sitting around and cut a couple more notches in it. And I'm not entirely happy with this clamp system. I'll probably have to work on this later, but for now it's just had a scrap piece of poplar, cut a V in there so it'll clamp this in place. It'd probably be a lot easier if it was an actual curved bottom bowl, because then it would be able to press down on the bowl, whereas right now I'm using sort of angled pressure, and because of that I had to put these blocks on the end just to keep this from sliding out. But it seems to be holding it in there well enough that it should be able to withstand the cut of the thickness planer, which is already all set up. So this is going to be the first cut to see if this thing works, or if it shoots this sled across the room and breaks my new planer. Let's give it a shot, see what happens. Holy smokes, that's heavy. I should have an assistant helping me film this. Alright, let's see what happens. So that was about 10 or 15 passes, and it looks like I have a perfectly flat bottom bowl. No trouble with kickback, or no tear out noted, even on a figured piece of poplar. So let's take this thing apart and see what we got. I didn't quite get rid of those screw holes all the way, but I wanted to stop before I had to do too much sanding around the edges again. So this piece here is just to keep these jokers from moving. There's got to be a better way to do this. I had a thicker piece at first. I kind of wanted it to flex. I ran it through the bandsaw to resaw it, and still doesn't really flex too much. Maybe that right there, but with some, I put some leather on the end or something, just so it doesn't make any marks on the wood, which I don't think it did. That's it. You got the rails here, which, since it's wood on wood pressure there, they're not going to slide. Those are pretty sturdy. I just wouldn't put any wax or anything on there. So you loosen those jokers up, and then you can move this up and down for several different bowls until you run out of wood and have to cut a new piece of scrap. Take that off just to see what's behind there. Nothing but just a bolt, left over one of those furniture bolts, and a washer and the little knurled knob. And if you do have something smaller you want to plane, easy enough to just set it on a block so you lift it up a little bit more, and that way you don't get below your outer rail system here. Looks like I can get maybe on a 13-inch planer, this gets me about 8.5 inches of width, which is fine because that's about what I can fit into my my mini lathe. If you want to do something bigger, you could just make these rails on the side a little bit narrower probably. I just wanted a big beefy piece of ash so it wouldn't flex on me. And what else? Yeah, these guys, I'll get a knob so I can hand tighten those. And this could also be used if you have any blanks that you don't want to run through the bandsaw or don't feel like trying to flatten out. You could just drop those down in there too, as long as they're not wider than the sled. Put some shims underneath and clamp them down, and that should work fine for cutting those as well. And if you're wondering why this piece is about 1.25 inches shorter than the sled, it's because I cut the sled to 24 inches to match the T-track, and I had a piece of wood that was twice as long as this, so I cut it in half, so nothing special there. And the end state is in this case, nice figured poplar bowl, crotch cut from many years ago, that sits perfectly flat.